welcome to GenFriends. I'm your host, Cheri Hudson Passey from Carolina Girl Genealogy. I've got an awesome panel and an equally awesome guest, so let's get started. We've got Laura Hedgecock from Treasure Chest of Memories. Hi, Laura.
Hi.
So glad. I'm always glad when you're here. I'm always glad when everybody is here. So thank you for being here, Laura. We've got Mary Kircher Roddy from MKR Genealogy. Hi, Mary.
Hello.
So glad that you're here too. We've got our resident funny guy, Dan Earl, has joined us again after his family reunion, family trips that he's been taken. And we're glad that he is back with us and in one piece and in good health. He is our family history guy. Hi, Dan.
Hey, glad to be back.
I'm glad you're back too. And we have got the last but not least, our wonderful archive lady, Melissa Barker. Hi, Melissa.
Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
So glad to have you all. We have got a wonderful guest. We have.
You mentioned Mary.
I did
Yes.
mention Mary.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was number 2.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And I was gonna share a couple of things before we went to our speaker.
Okay, shall I introduce her and then just say, hang on, Melissa's got something she wants to say?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, all right.
I'm gonna share my screen too.
Okay, and she wants to share her screen. So we've got Meli Alexander, and you guys might know her as the DNA chef. Now, that's interesting, right? The DNA chef. So we can't wait to talk to her about how she's put her love for cooking and her love for genealogy together. But we need to take a quick side step because Melissa has a couple of things that she wants to announce before we get going. Go ahead, Melissa.
Couple of records releases or things that have happened. I'm going to share my screen. Can anyone see this?
It's popping
I
up.
wish I had ancestors in Wisconsin, but they have made a discovery of over 70 ledgers found in a safe dating back to the 1860s. These are prisoner ledgers.
Yeah.
There's a video. If you look for the news item, there's a video. And so, yeah, this is phenomenal. And this is why I tell genealogists all the time, never give up, continue to look, always ask archives, what records have you processed? What have you found? What's been donated? Because there's stuff in people's attics and basements all over. The other one, I'm going to switch real quick to an announcement that was on Facebook. And when I do this, my daughter's messaging me. So you're going to see messaging. There's
we'll try not to read it.
Okay. And this one comes from the Kentucky Genealogical Society. I'm actually on the board of directors for them. But this was announced today. They have digitized the Jefferson County Clerk's Reckoning Incorporated. This is their 110 years of estate settlement records from 1800 to 1910. Wow. And they're available free on Family Search.
Very cool.
Okay.
So if you have Wisconsin ancestors or if you have these Kentucky ancestors, there you go.
Very, very cool. I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
So I'm all about the records.
I love
Jefferson County. Is it the whole state of Kentucky or is it just Jefferson County?
Jefferson County, Kentucky.
Very cool.
Yep, there you go.
And one other thing that I wanted to bring up really fast before we get started is just that our thoughts and our prayers, we wish we could do something for the people of Maui. Just terrible, terrible destruction there. And I wanted to make sure we said that GenFriends is praying for you. And we know that there's so much destruction of records, of people's homes, of lives, of just everything. People are never going to get these things back, and people, they've lost family members, and it's heartbreaking. And I just wanted to say we are thinking about those people and wish that there was something that we could do to help with that. But I know that there's a lot of groups out there that are asking for help, legitimate groups that will get needed aid to those people. And so I just wanted to just mention that before we get started. I didn't want to act like we didn't even know what was going on in the world as we started GenFriends tonight. So anyway, thank you for letting Melissa and I do that little bit before we get started. So we got lots of time to talk to you. So
okay, good.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so interested. So tell me, how did you go? We were working in California. You were actually doing movies?
Yeah, I'm an actor and producer, and so I was working on a lot of TV shows and some short films and things. And about 2019, the work kind of just dried out. So unfortunately, we had scrambled to do audience work or paid audience work, which was very competitive and silly. And so I kind of got out of that for a bit because it was really frustrating. And then, of course, 2020, I was looking for work, and then all of a sudden, COVID decided to show up out of nowhere. And I was able to kind of connect a little bit more to the genealogy community on Twitter and started building relationships and getting to know people and learning what everybody else was doing. And so I thought that was pretty exciting. And especially when you have all the time in the world to kind of pursue your passions. Yes. And so it was a blessing in disguise, for sure. Yeah.
And then you went to culinary school as well.
Yes, I went to the Art Institute of Seattle back in 2004, and I took the one-year program and surprisingly graduated with honors. So that was pretty cool.
That's great. Good for you.
Yeah, newly divorced, moving from actually St. George, Utah to Seattle was a big change. And it was scary going to culinary school in my mid-30s, but I learned so much and it kind of ignited my passion for food again. And like I said, I still can't believe I graduated with honors. Like,
I think
I was surprised.
Are you still in Seattle?
Go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry?
Are you in Seattle?
I lived in Seattle from 2004 to 2012. And now I live in Salt Lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did you decide to put those two together?
Well, I've always been passionate about genealogy ever since I went to a family reunion in New Brunswick, Canada, when I was about 11, 12 years old. And, you kind of get...
got you young. They got you young.
They got me young. And it was like right around the time Princess Diana was, the most popular woman in the world, with the big wedding to Prince Charles, and getting our family tree book, which I wish I had a copy of still. I learned about like all the royalty that goes way back, to King Egbert and all this other, Alfred the Great and all that other stuff. And I thought, wow, Princess Diana, she's royalty too. I'm going to be related to her somehow. And then my cousin said, yeah, Princess Diana is your cousin too. And so that really kind of ignited my passion for genealogy, because I wanted to learn how I got from me all the way to the beginning of England and the beginning of, Europe and all that other stuff. And it just found it really fascinating. And I decided during the pandemic, how can I stand out in the genealogy community? Like, what do I have uniquely to offer? And then one night it just dawned on me, food. I love food. I love genealogy. What if I put it together and see what happens? And so I kind of started brainstorming a little bit, and then I came up with the term of culinary genealogy, which sounds like exactly what it is. So it's basically combining the disciplines of food and genealogy to kind of help people find the roots to family recipes and food culture. And I figured I have something. I just still kind of need to figure out what I can do with it. So yeah, if I can help anybody, say if they get their DNA results and they don't know what they are, and they, but they've been told that they're this and they're that, and then they get the results back for the first time, and then they find out I'm actually 5% German. I don't know anything about German cuisine. That's where I come in.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I can help you. I can help you figure out a signature recipe, or talk about the food, or you talk about just Germany, because I've been to Germany and I'm obsessed with German foods, and maybe that's why I brought German up in the first place. But I think I have something, and it's just a matter of talking to other people, kind of brainstorming with them, and just kind of what services can I offer that would make a lot of sense to a lot of people.
Right.
And I think that's where I am right now.
Yeah. Well, I've got a large percentage of Scottish, and I'm like, Oh, I'm not known for a lot of, I don't want to eat the haggis.
No.
So, but I do have some German, and I could go for that. Yeah. That's really,
it's like
that's
it's one
really,
of my favorites. Like all I did in Germany was eat schnitzel everywhere I went. Schnitzel, and I didn't try anything else.
well, then I've got the English too, and so every time I go there, all I want to eat is fish and chips. So
they're so good. Yeah.
For every meal. But it's really important that we do learn about the social context of our ancestors. What were they doing? What was around them? And food is important. Food is something that gathers families together. And so I think it's a really fun kind of twist to, figure out what your DNA is, figure out what cultures are in your background, and then find out about the food. I think that's kind of a really fun idea. Has anybody on the panel researched foods that their ancestors? Of course you have, Mary.
Okay, I stepped into the research. When we lived in Ireland, my husband had a sabbatical and taught at the University of Limerick, and so while he was working and the kids were going to school, my job was to figure out what we were going to do for the weekend to learn about Ireland. So we traveled all over. And one of the things that we went to was a folk park, the Ulster American Folk Park. And we were there. They had kind of a Halloween celebration going on, and they had food that you could sample. And it was so cool to get to eat those things. And then they had recipe cards. We brought some of them home. I mean, that was in 2000. I'm still making colcannon. It's like one of my favorite Irish foods. And so the folk parks can be a really good way, because a lot of them, I think, do share food culture.
Yeah. I know that one of the counties here in South Carolina, they have once a year, they've got a little miniature village set up the way it used to be back in the 1800s. And you can go and they cook the way they used to cook, and they serve the recipes that they used to serve then. And it's amazing, because anytime I can see something that my ancestors may have done, whether they actually ate that meal or not, it still makes me want to think, oh, they could have. Maybe they were sitting around a campfire just like this with this kind of pot, and they were, making this kind of food. And it helps me to learn a little bit more about them. And I think, like I said before, food is so important, because I mean, not only do we have to have food to sustain our bodies, but food is what brings families and people together. So many celebrations, or just the daily parts of life. You've got to eat your breakfast, whatever they call it, lunch, dinner, supper, whatever, in that community. Those were traditions. The foods were traditions. And so I think that's really kind of a cool thing that you're doing with the
Thank you. Yeah, and you're right. It's that connection with your past that kind of gives you that just that happy feeling, just knowing this is what your ancestors might have done, what they might have cooked, what area they grew up in, just subtle changes to certain recipes and things like that too. So that's why I think it's just really fascinating, because I've been a foodie my entire life. Like I grew up in Hartford, Connecticut, but I also lived in New York City. And once my parents got divorced, I'd spent a lot of time in New York and was obsessed with Chinese food, to the point where I told my dad that I wish I was Chinese. So I'm like 5 or whatever. This is like, I think, before my parents actually got divorced. And he's like, well, why did you say that? And I said, because I want to eat Chinese food every day. Yeah.
Well, I was interested in knowing with the panel, what foods do you remember? What if you think about your ancestors, your grandparents, or even farther back, what are the foods that you remember that maybe you still eat now, but that you remember that has that family connection and that tradition? Can you guys think of anything?
I'll go first, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So my grandmother, my mom's mom, was from Hungary. She was from the southern part of what's now Hungary, but at the time it
Mm-hmm.
was the Austro-Hungarian Empire,
Mm-hmm.
and so my family loves like paprikash and goulash and like all these other dishes, and so before my son left to go on his mission to Africa for 2 years,
Uh-huh.
we thought, oh, he's going to want cheeseburgers or pizza. He wanted chicken paprikash before he left.
Ah,
And so with the noodles and the gravy and the the sauce and the chicken and everything, and so that was his sort of last at home meal for 2 years, and
oh,
that's
I
what he
love
wanted
that.
because we just have that, and they just all the kids love that, and it just connects them in a
Mm-hmm.
real way to their grandmother, who none of them met. She passed before before I was even in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and so it was just this really kind of great connection for them to kind of connect them back to her, which was kind of fun. I've got a lot of cool food stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else? Laura.
This isn't quite the same, but I thought it was very interesting. My mom and her sister had very different Thanksgiving recipes. And my mom, my husband laughed at her, thanks with her stuffing because it was like this hard, cut it in a slice stuff. And my husband had grown up with, where it was spooned. So
Yeah.
I asked my uncle, why did Aunt Nancy and mom, have different recipes? What did you grow up with? And he looked at me like I was crazy. He said, we raised hogs. We didn't have Thanksgiving turkey. So it made me think that these foods are really representative of a lifestyle a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the simple recipes were because they just didn't have much other than the simplest of ingredients.
Yeah.
And sometimes those were even scarce. So I thought it was really interesting. So I'm assuming my Aunt Nancy got hers from her mother-in-law. I don't know.
Probably. Probably. I used to get sad thinking, oh, I don't really have anything because I'd have friends that had all this Italian stuff or Chinese stuff or, French or Mexican, whatever it may be. And I'm sitting here just eating cornbread. And, and then I realized cornbread is a Southern food, fried okra. Love me some fried okra, the sweet corn casserole, all those things.
Country ham and red eye gravy. You
Exactly.
cannot beat that.
No biscuits.
That's
all
that's
those
what I
kind
was
of
going to
things.
say. I was going to say because
yeah.
my family doesn't, we're German, English, French. And so we don't have, I don't know, I guess traditional foods, plus the fact that my father was in the Air Force. So we didn't live near family a lot. I actually lived in Germany for 3 years when I was very young, from a
And it
year and a half
really
to
does,
3.
Melissa, change that kind of thing because I've got the same thing in my background.
But being a genealogist for 33 years, one of the things that I've paid a lot of attention to is just what you talked about, the North and the South, the battle of the North and the South again, because my family is from Ohio and the North. My husband's family is all from Tennessee and the South. And so when we got married, I had some new experiences, and Meli, you'll probably will really like this. We were dating, and I went to my husband's grandmother's house for dinner, and she was the typical Southern cook. The table was full of everything. And I'm sitting there, and I see a stick of butter on the table. I had never seen a stick of butter. In my house, butter was in a tub, which was not butter. But anyway, so I asked my husband, I said, what is that? And he says, that's butter. I said, that's not butter. He said, yes, it is. I said, no, it's not. Butter comes in a tub. And he said, and so he teases me to this day, the fact that I didn't know what butter was. But she also had just killed the chicken that morning for the chicken and dumplings. And I had never had that kind of fresh chicken. But we have debates about dumplings. My family would make chicken and dumplings, but they would be the biscuit type dumplings. In the South, his family made dumplings where you rolled it out and made long, like noodles, not real fat noodles. But so we have that argument. We have argument at holidays about the dressing, because my family would make white bread dressing, and his family makes, and he makes actually, cornbread dressing.
Cornbread. Yep.
And so, it's that kind of thing that's going on with me, because we didn't really have a lot of national type, because my family on both sides has been in the United States for so long that it's, they didn't bring, they probably did at the time, but they didn't last. But so mine is the North and South thing.
That's really funny.
That's pretty cool, though. You can kind of figure out a way to combine it both and kind of have like a cohesive holiday meal. But I mean, the cornbread stuffing sounds amazing. It
is. Cornbread stuffing is
so really good. I love Southern food, and it's like one of the most underrated foods, I think, on the planet. And it's just, it's so good.
Mary, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I just, I mean, to hear you guys talk about Southern foods, I grew up in California. And so that whole culture, and there's like this list going around on Facebook. Have you ever cooked this, that, and the other? Yes. And I am a scratch cook, and I don't use a lot of mixes. But I mean, there's some stuff like, no, that's totally not my culture. The okra, I mean, that's not something that we would ever have had. And I come from 5 generations of Californians, so it's long ingrained. It's not like anybody just moved from the South to California. They had established the California culture a long time ago. So it's interesting, just that regionality of cooking.
It is. And when I lived in Texas back in 1979, we learned more about the kind of Tex-Mex culture, and I had fried okra for the first time when I was in school for the cafeteria, and I never knew what it was, and I tried it and I fell in love with okra. It's just learning these little things about Texas and the food just opened my eyes and made me even more passionate about learning about more regional things. And I was 10 years old, and I was also cooking for my family too.
Oh, that's neat.
Well, I learned how to make pralines and taco salad and all that when I was 10, because I was a latchkey kid. So.
And I was just gonna say, don't even get me started from the South with grits. I mean, grits, but you have to have them made the right way. And I find that a lot of people that don't like grits is because they've got those instant runny things that nobody likes. You've got to cook your grits. Yes, Laura. Yes, Laura.
You would be so proud of me at the rehearsal dinner for my son's wedding. Well, it was really a brunch, and they gave us a selection of things to choose from, and shrimp and grits was on there. And the bride was like, well, obviously we're not having that. And I'm like, yeah. That wasn't the only thing, but we had to have shrimp and grits on the menu.
Well, and that's another thing too. Shrimp and grits changes from place to place, because it seems to be different in Virginia than it is.
This was in Virginia, but it was really good.
Good. Because we had some the other night that was a little too cheesy or something. We're like, maybe we don't like this shrimp and grits. Dan?
So when my wife and I got married, my mom compiled for my wife a list of our family recipes. Not that she was like trying to tell my wife, like, you need to cook this for your husband or anything. My mother was drastically more evolved than that. It was just here's a list of things, right? And and a lot of it was just like photocopies of family recipes. My dad's mom made the best peach jam in the world. And when she passed away, there were 2 jars left. My dad got one and his little brother got the other. And we said, okay, we're just going to, like, each family gets a jar and then that's it. And then we're going to run out of peach jam. And no one knew where the recipe was. No one had been able to find the recipe, and store-bought peach jam just paled in comparison. It just wasn't the same. And then this was when we lived in Arizona, and a friend of ours knew of somebody up in Utah that owned a peach grove. And so she was able to get this big crate of peaches. And so my wife just starts thumbing through. On the back of a recipe card that my mom had just thrown in there, she sees this recipe for peach jam. And she's like, oh, hey, I'm going to make this peach jam recipe. And then it had been, like 12 years since my grandma had passed away. And my wife made my grandmother's peach jam. I mean, it was perfect. It was spot on. It tasted exactly the same. And like it was like this tearful moment of this connection, right? Back to my grandmother. And my sister was getting married um like later that month. And so half of our suitcases we flew to Florida was jars of peach jam that we gave out as a wedding gift to my sister and that we gave to my dad and we gave to my dad's brother. And my dad's brother was like, this can't be the same, right? And so we got a spoon, and right there at the wedding reception, he opens the jar of peach jam and takes a bite of it and then just like broke down and gave my wife a big hug because thought he would never taste his mom's peach jam again. And now it's just our kids grow up on it. Like they're having their great grandmother's peach jam, and that's just the peach jam. And so we planted our own peach trees on our property so that we don't have to buy them. So it's homegrown peaches using my grandmother's. So like we're about ready to harvest. And so usually every year my wife will make around like 6 gallons of jam. And then she uses the pits and the skins to make peach syrup, which was also on there, which is like the best thing in the world. And so there's that. So food connects us, and even if it's not like, you know, because I mean, my grandmother was from Traverse City, Michigan. I mean, and peaches aren't a Traverse City thing. That's cherries, right? So anybody that's from Michigan, you know, Traverse City is a cherry place. And so there was no connection. It was just that recipe, right? That specific recipe with that precise amount of sugar, that a specific type of like sure gel or whatever gelatinizing thing that she puts in there. I just get out of the way and let the magic happen in the kitchen because I feel like I would somehow interfere with whatever like magic is happening in there. And so I just get out of the way and let her. I examine the peaches for worms, and that's all I do.
That's all you do. You know, that's amazing because sometimes we get those recipes and it's something, it doesn't work. And it's like, grandma made this. I've got her recipe, but there's something we don't know what it is missing. And I think a lot of us go through that too. So that's wonderful that it tasted just like hers, because I've heard numerous people complain about those types of things, that they had the recipe, but for some reason it just wasn't the same when grandma didn't make it. So
yeah, my dad loved my wife before that, but he really really loved her after that.
I'll bet. That's amazing. I love that. And who doesn't want to eat food? So this is it's a great way to put people together, family connections, you know, gathering family cookbooks, making those, or those types of things for family reunions, any of those types of things. So, and I know that cookbooks too can teach us a lot about our ancestors as well. If we find some old family cookbooks, because so many of them people have written in them, you know, and they'll say, no, I cut that recipe down. So you've got grandma's handwriting, right? Or they'll say, you know, one of the people in the family really loved this one, and so I'd make it every year on their birthday. So a lot of times you get all this family history written down inside of a cookbook too. So, or even information on a community, because there are a lot of cookbooks out there that are church cookbooks, or, you know, any kind of a society cookbook, and you kind of get a little feel for the community as well with cookbooks. So I think it's a very good idea to connect your genealogy with food. So where do you see yourself going? What is your goal?
Well, my goal is I need to launch my website. So I've been kind of working on it. And since I took the time to move to Salt Lake City, it's kind of been very chaotic.
Well, and why did you decide to go to Salt Lake? What made you?
Genealogy, capital of the world, of course.
Yes.
And I fell in love with it when I was in Roots Tech. And I thought, oh, wow, this is such a great city. And LA is getting too dangerous. It's just getting absolutely crazy. Yeah. And plus, I want to work on a family history book. And I want to be able to go to the family history library whenever I feel like it, just to look at resources and things like that too. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like been my main goal for the past few years, is to write a family history book. But because of my culinary background, I also want to include recipes, just kind of basic things to say, okay, this is what my great grandparents might have made, depending on what part of the world they are from. So this is a little bit of the genealogy and also doing the research to kind of really pinpoint what a typical recipe might be, just for not even for a specific holiday or anything, but just because what they might just have in any given night.
Yes.
So being here, it's great. It's just been really chaotic and crazy.
Laura?
And so a lot of times when we talk to people about writing family stories, one of the things I recommend is a recipe book as a jumping off point. I know a lady here in Detroit who's written a memoir, and every story involves food somehow. And it's more about how she went from Kentucky as a child to from the hollers into Detroit, where there's a lot of Polish food and things. And then each story, every chapter ends with a recipe for food that was in that story. So there, I could see where with ancestors and stuff that could work so well as you're telling about their lives and stuff. Then it gives people an opportunity to kind of bring them into their own home and maybe
I love that idea.
Yeah.
One of the things that I do as a presenter, as a speaker, I do a whole presentation on dragging genealogy information out of your family members when you get together, because it's difficult to get our families talking about anything, and they know more than they really think that they know. And so one of the things that I encourage people to do is to use food. To either bring out the recipe cards and talk about the foods that will get your family members talking.
Oh, yeah.
Or to make some of the dishes that your family remembers, have them at the get together. And I'm telling you that when they start eating it, they're going to start telling stories. Not necessarily stories about the food, but just stories about the family, about, well, I had this at this particular time and this happened, and then there they go. And they're telling stuff that if you were just to sit and ask them, hey, tell me the family stories, they wouldn't have come up with them. But tasting food, smelling food, smell is a very strong sense. It will bring memories back very quickly. And so that's one of the things that I encourage genealogists to do.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that. And I think a lot of us have the same meals that we fix for certain holidays or celebrations. And so when you've got the family gathered around and they're eating those same little things, those, like you're saying, Melissa, the smells, those textures, it brings back memories. And they do start talking about, oh, do you remember when, that they may not have thought of before.
Yeah, the olfactory sense is the only sense that feeds directly into the brain.
Ah, yeah.
And so it really is one of the strongest, but also it feeds into taste.
Yes.
I used to love doing it. I used to be the science fair lady, and I would go in and I would I would start talking to the kids, and I would be cutting up oranges. And then I would tell them I wanted 2 volunteers to be blindfolded and do a taste test. And one of the kids got milk. And invariably then he was, it was always boys that volunteered. And it was because of the smell of the oranges had just kind of piqued his, he wanted something citrus because he'd smelled it. Yes. And milk just wasn't doing that for him. So it's really interesting how all that works together.
Well, just think for a minute, when you smell Play-Doh, what happens? I mean, you're right back into a little kid, and you just that smell of the Play-Doh or crayons. My grandkids will start playing with crayons, and I'm just back there.
I can hear my mom yelling at me to stop eating the Play-Doh.
Hey, it's non-toxic.
It probably was in the 80s, but
probably now probably not. No,
which explains a lot.
But it does. At a certain age, we made our Play-Doh. That flour.
Yeah.
That we made that, and it was so the texture, you could feel it so much. Or also of a certain age, mimeograph paper.
Oh yes, the smell of that.
I'm the only one. Y'all aren't saying anything.
No. I know.
Dittos.
Yes.
In school, when they would hand out the papers, you would pick them up and smell it.
Smell them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Long time ago, but yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh.
And one of the smells that really gets me, and I talked to a lot of people about it, and they just can't stand the smell of it. But it is something that reminds me of my grandmother, in a good way, is mothballs.
Oh,
you're right.
Yeah.
Oh,
when I smell mothballs, I immediately think of my grandmother, and it's a good feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. It's a feeling of remembrance, and a lot of people are like, "Ooh, yuck."
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you're right, because my grandma used them.
Dan?
Oh, no, go ahead, Laura.
No, I was saying that she's right. Your turn.
Oh. Well, when my wife and I first started dating, we went out on a date, and it was the first time that she was like fancy and was like wearing makeup, right? And which she totally doesn't have to do. It's like painting over the Mona Lisa. She's like super beautiful without it, right? But she wanted to do it for herself. But it was the same brand of makeup that my dad used at the funeral home. And so when I let her know that, I didn't do it in a very judicious manner, and we still joke about it today, mostly me, but we still joke about it today. But smell it, like I was like, oh hey, I was like, that smells really familiar. I was like, and then it finally hit me. I was like, you smell like the corpses at my dad's funeral home. And she's just like, what? Like the makeup that you have on, because like she doesn't wear a lot of makeup anymore.
Not a good line to tell your date. No, not a good line.
Hey, but it worked, She still married me.
I think it's despite that, not because of that.
Should start a separate channel, dating advice from Dan.
That would be scary. Well, I'm excited for you as you
that voice.
0% success guaranteed.
How did you pursue this and build your business and help people? I think that's just wonderful for you to be able to come to you and say, okay, I know this much. How can you help me know more about my family using what kind of foods would they have eaten, and how can I learn about them that way? I think that's really fun.
Thank you. Yeah, I know I'm onto something. It's a matter of taking like thousands of ideas and then try to like funnel them. And I think that's where I kind of struggle right now, because it's like, oh, I could do spice blends, and I could teach people just how to be better cooks, and I could do artwork.
You could be the genealogy spice girl.
There you go. Hey. Hey, if you're endorsing it, I'll take it.
Right, ask him if you could,
hashtag
everything.
If you want to be my ancestor,
exactly. There you go.
One of us had to do it, and it was going to be me.
That was good, Dan. Did you guys hear what Dan said?
If you want to be my ancestor, it's a Spice Girls song.
Oh, do you want to be my ancestor?
Yeah, no. Do you want to be my cousin?
Yeah, if you want to be my cousin.
There you go.
Yeah, I even did the dance.
I don't even remember the dance. I remember the video vaguely.
Well, tell us where people can get a hold of you if they want to pursue looking into the recipes or the things that their ancestors would have eaten during a certain time period. Where can they find you?
Sure.
We'll have all this on.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We'll have links.
Okay, good. My main presence is on Twitter. And so I'm Your American Cousin. So we'll obviously have a link to that. Yes. That's probably the best way to reach me.
Okay.
And once, you could either just, well, it's not even Twitter anymore. God, I can't call it X. I'm sorry.
We're just, whatever you used to use as Twitter, just use that. It still works.
Yeah. The app formerly known as.
That's where I'm going, Mary. Yeah.
Exactly.
The social media formerly known as Twitter.
Yeah, exactly.
It still works. They can still get a hold of you like that.
Yeah, well, I call FedEx Kinko's still. That's just, if I look it up, it's like I need to go to Kinko's to make some copies, and Kinko's will come up. It'll come up as FedEx, but it knows what it means.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's probably the best way to reach me, because I'm mostly interactive on there. You can either send a tweet.
That's where I met you, is on.
Exactly. Yeah. Private message me. Yeah. And then I could just give you my more personal information, like an email or whatever, and just kind of just brainstorm with them. I said, well, what have you learned? What do you want to learn? How can I help you? How can I make you feel a connection with your past? And that's what I want to do. I want to be able to help people because we are all connected.
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely. And food is just a really great way to honor your ancestors and to just honor who you are as well.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. It just sounds like something that's really fun and something fresh and new. So I appreciate that. Anybody else got any last questions before we say goodbye? And is there anything that else you wanted to say that maybe we didn't get to?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything. I just think that, you know, like I mentioned earlier, I just wanted to kind of find what I could bring to the genealogy world. And I think I figured it out because just like I said, I've been a foodie my entire life. And I think that people really do feel a connection to the past through food, family, like I said, family recipes, cookbooks, things like that. And plus, you know, I'm a chef too. I could help you run through making a recipe and have it succeed. That would be very easy to do.
Well, you know, you said something that's so important. And you said, I needed to find something that I enjoyed that I could do better than what other people, something different than what other people are doing. And so that's how we each get to where we are, is we try to figure out what we love and how we can do something a little bit different and bring something different to the community. And that's what you're doing. So I think that's really good. And I really like that. So
thank you.
We wish you all the best in this. This sounds like so much fun.
Thank you. Yeah, like I said, it's just taking all these thousands of ideas and manic energy and try to create a diamond out of it for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we wish you well. We wish you luck. And we will see you out there on Twitter and at Roots Tech and other places.
I have no excuse not to go. I'm literally.
And now that you're in,
5 minutes away.
You've got no excuse to go. So we wish you luck, and we hope that this idea just keeps growing and growing and growing, and that through being on GenFriends and the other places that you are, that people will find you, and this will be something fun for people to be able to add even more as they're putting that flesh on the bones, as we call it, to their ancestors. So thank you so much for joining us. It's so nice to have you come on and to meet you.
Thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun listening to your food stories. Now I'm super hungry.
That's what I'm thinking. My daughter made banana bread right before we came upstairs, and she put caramel icing on top of it.
Okay, I gotta go eat now.
We're gonna go eat now. So thanks everybody for watching. We'd love to hear your comments. We'd like to know what your family favorites are. What foods do you connect with your family? We would love to hear it in the comments. We sure appreciate it when you let us know that you've watched and you leave a comment. So do that for us, and I'd love to read them, and let us know. And with that, we will see you next time on GenFriends. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.